Mayor, how are you this morning?
Doing fine, Keith. How about you?
Good. Big late afternoon for you yesterday. You presented your annual State of the City address, the fourth time you've had the honor of doing that before the school committee and city council. Let me just first ask you, how do you think you did?
I don't know. I have real tough time grading myself on those. Sometimes it feels like I'm sending a message, and sometimes it feels like you're reading a laundry list. So you don't want it to be too dry, but at the same point, there's a lot of important events going on in Fall River and a lot of things happening. People, have to know that the city is definitely moving, and I think we're gonna do very well. So I guess getting the message out was important, and I definitely support that.
Yeah. One of the big you touched upon a lot of things: finances for the city, public safety, tourism, jobs, the housing situation, which of course is first and foremost for a lot of people in Fall River. I want to spend a few moments on education. As we've talked about before, the city of Fall River is expected to receive some extra funding, $20 million for local schools, and in conjunction with that, we've talked about this as well. When the state gives more money, the city is asked to kick in more money, and that impacts the city budget year in and year out. You're actually asking for the state legislature to approve, if approved by the council, a home rule petition, which will help the city out in its share of paying for education. Talk about how that came about and how it could help the city.
Well, you look at what goes on in the schools, and again, these are just things that have been in place for a long time, and I'm looking at them, and they don't make sense to me. You look school transportation, to try to keep it basic for everybody. School transportation is paid for by the city, but it's monitored and maintained by the schools. Thank God we don't want to do that, but they have their own transportation department. They pick the routes, they assign the buses, they do that, and they hand us a bill. Now, to me, that's 100% for the schools, but I can't deduct it under what they call net school spending, which is the amount of money the city has to kick in to fund the schools. So when you look at a number like that, $11 million, which happens to coincide with the cost of the bonds we're going to be incurring on both Durfee and Diamond, that's a heck of a lot of money for the taxpayers in the city of Fall River. If they would allow us to use that money as net school spending, the city would definitely take a couple of steps up. The other thing that is constantly on us is $10 million for bonding for some of our older elementary schools and for other schools. So you look at the $10 million there, the $11 million in transportation. To me, those are school functions and the technical parts of net school spending. For example, and this is when I do get frustrated, I can put a kid on a bus to go to Brockton to play a basketball game, and that's net school spending. But if I put a kid on a bus from Bay Street to go to Durfee to learn math, that's not net school spending eligible. And I'm like really torn by the values that the DESC puts on some of these things. I have no idea why athletics is net school spending eligible, but learning math, English, and science is not. I think transportation is a school function. I believe that this is the time to address it over the next, between last year and this year, the school's funding has increased by almost $43 million. Even there, like you said, that's another, $5 million for the city, depending on what formula they use to assess us. So although I am extremely pleased that the state has gone over and above to help our school funding. They put our schools on a tremendous track. I worked in the schools when every year I got a layoff notice because we didn't have any money and I was in
Mm.
danger of losing my position because of budget cuts. But we're in much, much better space now. I think it's a time for the state to address these things. And if they look at them rationally through common sense lenses, I think they're going to agree with me. Now, I do, like I said, it's a long shot. We're going to go up there and lobby for this bill. I believe that the local delegation understands where I'm coming from. I think MMA, our Mass Municipal Association, understands where I'm coming from. And I think the administration, Governor Healy and Driscoll, know where I'm coming from. I think when you look at a town like Fall River, This to me just makes sense, and I'm going to work on it, and I hope that the residents understand what I'm doing. The common theme I always hear is, "Oh, you're taking money off the kids," but that's not quite true. I think attendance in the schools is as important as anything we put in the classrooms for the children. They have to get to school to learn in school, and to try to wedge one against the other. Transportation and getting to school is part of education, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, has this been done before in the state? Have other communities asked for some relief here? And do you think that if it doesn't pass the home rule petition part for Fall River, that at least it will spark conversations to, change the way this school funding is handled statewide?
Yeah, I think it's already sparking conversations. I just think that we have to get this bill into the legislature. I got clearance yesterday from the House Counsel. I've had clearance from the Senate Counsel that at least it's worded properly and we can go forward with it. I'll probably send it down to the City Council on the next meeting, and I'll make my pitch to them. I think it's important for a city like Fall River. And when you look at what's going to happen with educational funding from the Student Opportunity Act, this is an excellent time to do it. We're in a tremendous financial position. We're at the point where we can't. We're still we're still doing our school committee meetings in March, talking about how many people we're hiring now, and we've been trying to hire them since September.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to bring in the amount of staff that this funding would generate. So at the same time, I think there's ways to do this to make the city much more financially viable.
Yeah. You mentioned Durfee and Diamond, the new schools there. Diamond just starting work. Of course, the new Durfee been around now for its second academic year. The city is starting to pay the bill, has been for the new Durfee. This coming fiscal year, the city will be billed by Diamond for the beginning of that project. You mentioned last night in your State of the City address that you'll be using ARPA funding again to help offset the costs for city residents. I know that won't last forever, but at least it's a good start to give people some relief, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did this last year. We cut the Durfee bill in half. Again, that was approved by the voters. But if we can give them a little bit of a break, we might as well spread some of the money directly back to the homeowners. I have no problem with that. The bill coming on for Diamond is like for the first bonding amount on the on the phone with Diamond to make sure we get the amount they want from us this year.